One of the most common and popular questions that I get is what type of gear do I take hunting? And it varies tremendously depending on your destination, of course. If you're going to hunt Alaska on a DIY drop camp deal where you're getting flown in on a bush plane and you have a 50-pound maximum weight limit, your packing list is going to be very different than if you go on a squirrel hunt to Kentucky or a high country hunt in New Zealand, or our topic for today, safari in Africa. I've had enough questions from listeners and viewers on YouTube recently, specifically asking for advice on what to take to Africa, that I thought I'd get a couple of my good pals and partners in crime here on the show, and we'll talk through what we use and what works and what you don't need, which when you're going to Africa can be just as important as what you do need. So everybody knows Austin Brown, partner in Global Hunting Adventures. He's abandoned all of his work responsibilities, which were large today, to come on the show with us. Man, you've hunted around the world with me now, Austin, and I look forward to many more adventures around the globe with you, and appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. Welcome back, buddy.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Likewise. I'm looking forward to the next trip all the time.
Yeah, we can't not have next trips on the horizon. Life would be too dull. Our other guest today is Landon Michaels, who's been helping us with some of the logistics and so forth with Global Hunting Adventures, and has been actually on the podcast a couple times in the past. Landon and I go way back. We started hunting or shooting together just by coincidence at the same public land place in the West here. Geez, got to be 12 years ago.
I think it had to have been about 12 years ago. Just ran into you randomly. This guy's in my spot, and I'm thinking, who is this guy? And got chatting with you one day, and rest was history.
Cool thing is that first time we met, I was like, man, what you shooting there? Because you were ringing steel pretty reliably, I think at 800 yards. And you said it's a 6.5 by 284 Savage rifle, but I could tell right away you're a pretty savage rifleman. And you said, I've drawn a special limited entry mountain goat tag. I said, holy smokes, I've drawn a once in a lifetime level quality elk tag. And so we had a good visit talking about plans, and we both went and shot great animals that fall. You ended up working then for about 10 years in the marketing and product development department at Gunworks. Yeah. Contributed a lot there. You hosted the Gunworks Long Range Pursuit podcast for a lot of years.
Yeah.
So folks, Landon is a man with some experience behind the mic as well. What he doesn't have experience doing is hunting Africa. And we brought him on intentionally because he's going to have some pretty savvy questions that Austin and I are probably going to gloss right over because, well, you do something enough times, there are certain things that just kind of become second nature and you don't think you need to think about them, but you do. So
they say there's no such thing as a dumb question, right? But we'll find out.
Yeah.
I'll play the every man here today for sure.
Let's dive in. But before we address the topic, let's define the topic. What I want to do today is focus specifically on necessary gear. If we have time at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about paperwork type preps, firearm permits, 4457 customs border patrol form that you should get here in the States before you leave, so you can prove you can bring, that your rifle was yours, you can bring it back, and so forth. But let's talk nuts and bolts. And what I want to do is kind of do a round robin thing here. We'll each show an item, tell why we want that, and then when it comes to you, Landon, we'll just have you ask a question that's preying on your mind, keeping you awake at night.
There you go. Right.
And obviously our gear list is going to be a little bit fractured because Austin and I are going to show items and you're going to ask about items randomly. Any questions or comments, rude remarks before we get started?
Let's go.
All right. You're up, Austin. Show us something crucial.
Ooh, all right. So I want to show you something that I actually forgot one time. Okay, so number one thing, and the reason I pulled this out, this is the first thing I grabbed when I walked in, but it's those little Galco fold-over wallet cartridge holders, right? and they hold 10 rounds. There's going to be some crossover between you and I. We know that's
For
going to
sure.
happen. But that right there is one of those things that I forgot it. So I went on a trip. The first trip I took my wife on was to Namibia, and how I forgot it, I don't know, because it is one of those things that I grab a rifle, I grab my cartridge holder, it all goes in the gun case together. But I was so incredibly lost that like it still bothers me and almost soured a little bit of the trip. But so think about this. It's one of those things that, sometimes you don't know the love you have until you lose it, right? And that guy, I had cartridges jingling in my pocket when we were trying to stock. I was unorganized. I had so much muscle memory coming out of that cartridge or that holder to reload my rifle that I'm fumbling. I mean, it was awful, absolutely awful. So I had to pull that first because it was a bad memory and a bad experience, and I had to beat you to it.
Very cool. Just to elaborate on that a little bit more, that's the Galco, I think it's called the Stalker cartridge wallet. And they run close to $100 somewhere in there. On the website, you can get them for standard cartridges, such as your 30-06, 280 Ackley, and so forth. And for Magnum cartridges, they work for short and long. It just goes on your belt. It actually has a good, robust loop that keeps it tight to your body. When you need ammo, you just pop that double snap on the top, and it falls open with the weight of cartridges in there, and you can pluck them out. You got 10 rounds on tap, and I'm like you, Austin. This is one of probably the three most crucial things that I carry on my person while I'm hunting. Okay, I'm going to follow that up since we're on the topic of ammo, and maybe we can keep our gear kind of in order here.
Well, Joseph, let me propose something. Okay, you got it. You're on it. Go.
We're probably thinking the same thing. So this is the cartridge belt that I use when I need more than just 10 rounds or I want bigger than just 10 rounds. Yep. This is also by Galco Gun Leather, and it's just called the culling belt. Carries 10 rounds on each side of generally a fairly big bore cartridge. These are 458 lot cartridges that I have currently in here. You can't see this too well, those of you that are watching, but it does have a little elastic liner inside that will help hold smaller diameter cartridges, even stuff like your 35 Whelen and so forth. 9.3x62 will do okay. It looks a little funny, but these are ideal for all of your big bores. Let's say from 375 up to, your 450, 400 for your double rifle, your 416s, your 458 type cartridges. And it's actually a really cool piece of gear. The buckle on front doesn't have a keeper for the strap on the backside. You run that sucker through, buckle it around your waist, and then tuck that tag end inside so it won't ever catch or get in your way when you're grabbing for ammo. And then you slide it around so that the cartridges sit across the front of your body and they're ready to hand. I usually will put solids on one side, non-expanding dangerous game bullets on one side, and then expanding bullets on the other side while I'm carrying that in the field. All right, Landon, over to you.
So here's the first done question of the group is, I assume this is application wise, this is more for like your dangerous game, double gun kind of scenario, or is this across the board how you're hunting over there? As a Western hunting guy, it's like, I'm putting a couple down the, mag in the bolt action rifle, and maybe I've got a box in my pack and I'm good to go. That's how I've always hunted.
You must be a better shot than me.
Yeah, I'm very curious here. Is this how you're hunting plains game with a traditional bolt action rifle, a drop mag or a blind mag or a BDL style, or is this more of a double gun kind of thing?
Why don't I go with the plains game side and then you go with the dangerous game side, Austin, because there are two distinct categories here. I think the easiest way to answer this, Landon, is that often you don't carry a pack in Africa. You're going to be stalking without a pack. You might be bailing off the top of a ridge you've been glassing from. You might be slipping off the side of a truck and doing a 200-yard sneak. And so you need ammo attached to your body, backup ammunition. It's one of those things. If I've seen guys end up in Africa 3 rounds into an animal and they're like, oh, rubbish.
Where's
My
my
pack
ammo?
is a quarter mile back in the truck and that thing
Sure.
is wounded and I am out. And then, of course,
Mhm.
you got a fast tracker that makes a sprint for the truck. And, 20 minutes later, you get things sorted out. But that stress on you and the suffering of the animal didn't need to happen. So
Sure.
having your magazine loaded in the field in Africa plus 10 rounds on your belt pretty well takes care of that in every plains game situation. If you're in 14 or 15 rounds, it's probably time to stop and let the
Right.
PH,
Yeah,
your
reevaluate.
professional hunter, take care of business at that
Yeah,
point.
right. Okay.
Austin, for dangerous game, what do you think the answer is?
Well, and I'll echo you with that, Joseph, is that, when we say we don't hunt with a pack in Africa, we typically don't, right? There's usually one on the truck, water bottle, rain layer, maybe a light, insulation or something like that. I have an extra box of ammo that I'll typically throw in the bottom of that pack,
Yeah.
but then we carry everything that we're going to need on us. And so it depends on the rifle, right? I mean, of course, double rifle is just two. The culling belt, it holds, what's it hold, 20? Is that
Yeah.
right? So there's quite a bit of ammo there ready for you to go. And so then, if you get off and you go stock something, I mean, I had an absolute rodeo with a zebra on my first trip. I think I shot him 4 or 5 times, and so that was one of those situations where you really needed that ammo. But for the dangerous game side of it, having all that and easily organized, I mean, if you get in that situation, I shot my second buffalo 9 times.
Yeah.
So, just
Yeah.
it can get out of hand quick, and you want to have that with you at all times. That way, when you do see that animal or you're ready to go stalk or something happens fast, you don't have to think about anything. You don't have to
Sure.
gather your stuff. You just go.
Yeah. And it's important to have it readily accessible and to have trained in loading without looking from your belt or your cartridge wallet, because if you have dangerous game in the mix, you need to have your vision,
You need
all
to be
your
ready.
senses tuned downrange while you top off your rifle. Even if you start with something like a 375 H&H with a drop box magazine, you got 5 rounds on tap. You certainly can't be taking off a day pack and digging for a box of ammo when things get real
Sure.
Western. And
Sure.
it's actually really common to have to shoot Cape buffalo a lot. They're called
Yeah.
Black Death for a reason, and they have this
Sure.
adrenal response. I shot one 8 times. Austin's still one upping me on there, but
Well, tough animals and very target rich environments, no pack, right? These are all things that are very different from my, Western hunting, relatively narrow minded concept of or approach. And so that's very insightful. That's helpful. So, I mean, I'm gathering that, and that was a question I had here is, I'm sure it varies, but typical style of hunting, you're saying you're not usually carrying a pack. I assume this is usually relatively short, almost like what I would term truck hunting here. And not to say that in a derogatory way, but you're driving, maybe picking a spot, hopping out, doing a couple mile loop or something like that with your PH back in the truck and moving on. Is that like the quintessential kind of most typical style of, your ins and outs of hunting there?
it often is. There are differences to that. Austin and I have both climbed mountain ridges and spent the day there glassing for kudu and eventually shot bulls across canyons and so forth. But I think there are a few things at play that kind of define this. One is you've got a professional tracker along that is not packing a rifle. We don't have gun bearers like they did 100 years ago when you're carrying 2 or 3 guns and tracking elephants, And the tracker's job by default is to carry backup items that we may need, such as everything from water to, if you hand them your camera, your spare ammo, although I like to keep that on me, right? But the interesting thing is, especially when you're hunting dangerous game, they kind of want you, how shall I put this, unencumbered? You need to be
Unencumbered was
able to,
exactly the word.
yeah, you need to be able to
What's coming to
slip
mind?
through thorny, snaggy brush quietly and, get your inner leopard on, if I can use that
Sure.
term, where you're actually stalking as quietly and as effectively as possible. And then if you have to move fast to try and protect yourself or save somebody else's life, you don't have all that extra weight on you. The tracker at that point is, and it's his job to do this, he's getting out of the way. He's taking himself out of there as quickly as he can because he knows you don't want to have to protect him, and he doesn't want to be in the way of anything from stray bullets to horns and claws going nuts, right? So it's okay if he needs to drop some water bottles and even a camera and just boogie. You got to stand your ground and do your best to bring the current events to a happy ending.
Sure. Makes sense.
So let me illustrate just one kind of quick story here. So on that second buffalo, when I was on the sticks on that buffalo, and I mean he's shot, he's sick, he just won't go down because I'm hitting all around everything but a bone, and I'm in my rifle, and Jock said, "Open your action." So I opened my action, and he literally pulled another solid out of my belt for me and just shoved it down through my rifle, and then I was able to close on that solid. Like it was just
that's
slick as teamwork
right there.
Yeah, I mean,
on the ball.
And he's very good at coaching in the moment.
Yeah. There's some loading methods that are really important to practice, especially with the bolt action. Well, no, I can't say that, especially with the double rifle too, because you want to be able to fire within a split second's notice, but you have to open the action sometimes to top off. Anyway, that's a topic for another time. Let's kick it back to you, Austin, and another crucial gear item.
All right, so we went this direction, and I want to bring this little guy out. So that is the little, I think you referred to that kind of as a striker pack, right? A little day pack. I take that with me every time I go. That's what stays in the truck. That's Kifaru's door gunner. Unfortunately, they don't make it anymore. This little extra pouch on the front of it here is what they call their Sherman pouch. But that one, I love that. I mean, it's the pouch is big enough, so I will travel with this as my carry-on. So this has all my essentials. It has everything in it. It's big enough to where, when we pack over there, I've got one set of clothes in my carry-on, I've got one set of clothes in here, and I've got one set of clothes on me. That's it, right? I can throw an extra pair of shoes in here or in my carry-on if I need to in certain situations. It's big enough for magazines or my iPad in the front of it. Headphones go in there. But when I leave, I always keep a couple carabiners on this thing to where I can strap stuff to it, like my water bottle, because I don't want to lose my water bottle in the middle of the bush somewhere. We're on an airplane. But it's got a spot for the water in there. It's nice. So when it does get hot, it's ventilated on the back. Like I absolutely adore this pack. I mean, it has been, Rob Gearing had one on my first trip, and I've been using it ever since.
Yeah, very cool. I'm going to break protocol here for just a minute and talk a little bit about something you touched on there, Austin. That's not a gear item. It's a packing and prep item. Africa doesn't require a lot of gear, and it certainly, most of all, doesn't require a lot of clothing. There's a daily laundry service in every camp I've ever been in, including the bush camps. And really, all you need is about 3 changes of clothing, 1 to travel in, 2 to hunt in. If you're smart, you'll make your travel clothing also huntable, just earth tones, comfortable, stuff you can move in that's not too bright or white colored. And always, always take the bare essentials that you need to hunt with you with your carry-on. So a change of underwear at minimum, better yet, a change of, your shirt and pants. Wear shoes you can hunt in, even if they're just trail runner type tennis shoes or something. Take your binocular in your carry-on. You won't need a knife. You can borrow a knife if you need to. You can borrow a rifle and ammo and so forth. But, if you show up in flip-flops and shorts and a white t-shirt, no binocular, and then your luggage doesn't arrive for 3 days, you're going to be a very sad, wish you were hunting kind of participant, right? So, it's important. And then, like Austin, I use a day pack as one of my carry-ons, generally the small item. And in that, I'll keep a battery pack, power bank, whatever sort of thing, any medications you might need, whether it's a sleeping pill for a 16-hour flight or cold medicine if you're not feeling good, motion sickness medicine, stuff like that. Keep it handy. All right. On that note, let's see. We're talking. Yeah, go ahead, Austin.
Questions on the packs, Landon. Anything there?
Yeah, I couldn't see it. You're a little bit pixelated there. I'd like to. I'll have to pull that up and get a little bit better eye on that particular pack. Do you know what the volume is offhand?
Boy,
basically just a small day pack.
I want to say it's around 1,500 if I remember right.
Yeah,
it's pretty small.
Just a really handy size. Yeah, under the seat in front of you on the plane kind of size.
Yep. Absolutely.
Barely.
Great.
Yeah.
No, that one goes fine.
Cool. Well, I'm long enough that nothing goes fine under my seat.
Well, so one thing, let me add to this, is that it does have stays that slide in the back of that thing. So if you want a little more structure in that pack, then you can leave them in there. When I travel on the plane, I usually take them out because it does kind of compact and wad up underneath that seat a little bit better because it's not just stiff and long and rigid that way. And so,
one thing I have done in the past is when I've flown with larger packs is I'll take the stays out of the pack and throw them in my checked bag and throw them back, so it's a little bit easier to stuff under a plane seat.
Good idea.
And
not a bad idea.
Depending on the pack design, sometimes that's easy to remove and reinstall.
Yeah. I'm using a similar pack. I've used a lot of different packs with really good results from different companies, but currently, just because I've been inspired by Gearing and Austin, I'm using a Kifaru pack as well, and it's whatever they're using. For the life of me, I can't remember the name of it, but it's whatever they've come out with to replace the door gunner. It's actually slightly larger in size, but nice stiff stays in it as well, which is nice. You can use it as shooting support if you need to, and I've been really pleased with that. It's got good compartments for various stuff, ranging from your phone to your battery pack, your headlamps, your medications, your passport, if you do that, and so forth. I want to talk a little bit more about packing because we're on that. We're going to transition now. So this is just a representative rifle case, right? It's a soft case. It's a high quality one. You can use whatever you want, but I get a lot of questions about how to pack a rifle in your airline approved hard case.
Now, hold on. I got to one up you again real quick. so Joseph is really good at talking me into buying stuff. And we found these cases in Namibia. They're kudu on the inside, Cape Buffalo on the outside. They were at a taxidermy shop there. And honestly, I think they did the math wrong when they told us how much they cost. Because we priced them since at the same shop, and they were more than double of what they were back then. But anyway, sorry, buddy.
No, it's all good. So what I like to do, and what every other savvy international hunter I've visited with does, is generally you're taking two rifles, right? You either want to back up in case one breaks, or, as is mostly the case, you're taking a light rifle for plains game and a heavy rifle in case you encounter dangerous game. Or maybe you want to just shoot a eland and a giraffe, and you want something that shoots a 400 grain bullet. You take your hard case, your airline approved hard case, take all the foam out of it. Don't go cutting little slots and stuff and fitting your rifle in there. You're going to end up with a 20-pound check-in thing that only holds a rifle and maybe a cleaning rod and whatnot. You can't put your ammo in there when you're traveling internationally. It has to go in a separate checked bag. So we take all the stuffing out, all the padding, foam, whatever you want to call it, put your two rifles in soft cases, put them in that hard case. I generally put them like nose to nose, buttstock on each end, and you can kind of jigsaw puzzle them in there and then pack stuff around it, soft gear such as gloves, extra socks, a puffy coat if you take one. I put my shooting sticks in there if I'm taking shooting sticks. I put my bipod, tripod, hunting knife, all kinds of other gear in there, and I'd take it right to 50 pounds, 49 pounds if you want to be on the safe side. And you can just about get away with taking all your gear in your carry-on plus your rifle case. But then, of course, legally you have to check your ammo in a different duffel bag. So, that's we'll get to that. But that's how I pack a rifle. Austin, anything to add to that?
So I want to touch on the weight on that thing. One of the little tricks that I've learned over the years is when I take your locks on those cases, and I don't use the TSA locks, okay? And we can briefly hit on that real quick. So there's two schools of thought on that. Is that if you have a TSA lock on there, they don't have to page you, they don't have to call you if they want to reinspect your rifle, right? But typically when we fly, we're going to make sure that we have enough time on either end and in between that if there are any issues that shouldn't be a problem, just got to be paying attention. But I also don't really care to have everybody be able to access my stuff, and so I don't use the TSA locks. Now, so the locks that I use are typically pretty heavy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they weigh almost a three-quarters of a pound a piece, if I remember right. So we're looking at, I mean, there's 3 to 4 pounds of locks, right? So when I go and I put my gun on the deal, and they're going to have you open it up, and you got to fill out the little form that says yes, it's unloaded. You put it back in there, no big deal. I take those locks out and I set them right there on the counter, so they're not sitting on that scale when they're weighing my gun case.
Oh,
So
I
my
do the
gun case
same
will
thing.
typically be about
little
52
hack.
pounds.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I do the same thing. On the note of locks, I do use TSA compatible locks, but I use big ones and I use colorful
Big gear.
ones so that I can tell them from everybody else's. And I've come to prefer combination locks. And I'll tell you the reason I use combo locks and TSA approved locks, that just has a little key thing in the bottom, right? Is because I once ended up in the Denver airport when they needed to inspect my rifle case, and I was running out of time and I could not find the key to my main padlocks, activated padlocks. And we had to go find a bolt cutter, cut all my expensive locks off, and then I had to go to the little, in airport shop and pay a scandalous amount for a bunch of cheap locks that I didn't trust. And ever after that, I don't like locks that require a key. And I think, you know what? Just screw it. Let them open my case on their own if they're that interested. I want to throw just one thing else out there that Austin's been doing that I'm going to start emulating. That's put an air tag in your luggage in your rifle case. It's like an Apple AirTag or whatever the comparable thing for an Android would be. Because more than once, that saved our bacon when we need to call in the cavalry or something and have somebody find our bag, process it through, and get it on our final plane.
Well, and let's throw a shout out to Mr. X right there on that deal, because that's the guy that saved our bacon traveling through South Africa one time. We kind of flubbed up a little bit and didn't do the right process. Here's the deal: when you ask somebody in Africa, you may be asking three different people and you get three different answers. They don't know, they don't care, right?
Yeah.
But so he was able to, because we had that air tag in there, we saw that those gun cases were not moving with us and going towards our plane. I hit him on WhatsApp real quick and I said, "Hey, here's what's going on." He said, "Send me a picture of your passport. Tell me what the cases look like." And I'm not so sure, but Joseph called this out. We think he may have had enough clout to hold that plane till our gun cases made it on there. I don't know. But so when you travel through, Mr. X, he provides a service. You pay him cash money. He gets you right through the customs with the SAPS forms. Everything goes smooth. It's slick. There's a couple other guys that do it as well. He's the one that we've used over and over. Just a phenomenal guy, easy to deal with, super dude. So I'm sure, I mean, he wouldn't mind you sharing his contact on Patreon at all.
Yeah, we'll put Mr. X's contact on Patreon. He's also affiliated with the Afton House, which is kind of an overnighting, very nice lodge that you can use just outside the airport there. If you're connecting through to some other location in Africa and you have to overnight in Joburg. All right, Austin, you're up, buddy.
Okay, so you touched on medicine earlier, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So this actually helped us out when we were in Mozambique for a couple different guys. So I just take these little clear baggies, which looks incredibly suspicious, I'm sure, of different stuff. These, I'm not gonna self-incriminate anybody here. But I have stuff and they're just marked for what they do because I'm not a doctor, and sometimes you may not be able to Google or you may not be able to figure out what it is. So I literally just write on here what they're for. So I have one. Well, I have one for nausea. I have one for like if you had, diarrhea. There is one for inflammation. There's one. So I will travel with an antibiotic as well. And this one I will tell you is that you can go out to your local like PetSmart or like our vet supply store. We're in a pretty rural country here or county here, but you can go and you can get amoxicillin, doxycycline, penicillin, all that stuff, usually 250 and 500 milligram bottles. Its stuff is made in the same factories that everything else is. It's just not labeled for human consumption, if you will. That stuff has saved our bacon on a couple different trips. You get a head cold maybe from traveling, so something you caught on the airport or the airplane. We had a guy that I think was getting a little bit of strep throat one time in Mozambique, and so fixed him up in just a couple days. But that stuff is just essential um, to have with you at all times. And like Joseph said, goes into carry on. I do put it in like an actual bottle so it doesn't look as suspicious.
Yeah. And
disclaimer, not a doctor, not medical advice, right?
Exactly.
Thank you, Landon.
We are not medical professionals, and we are not suggesting you do this. It's just what we
Do
have
it, you're running
sometimes
that
done.
risk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
And there are times, allegedly, of course, there are times if you get a bad infection in parts of the world, it can be a while before you get out. And if, I do a similar thing, except I actually take something that works real well, folks. Go get a prophylactic antibiotic prescription against malaria. You're going to Africa, you can get that very easily. And then you can take, if you're not comfortable doing the vet thing, you're all, what do they call it? Food and drug approved stuff. Some simpler things, just to add on to Austin's advice there. I'll take something like Advil PM almost every night, because the older I get, the less I sleep and the lighter I sleep. When you're in a new country and on a totally different time zone, like 8 hours different, you're not going to sleep well. If you don't sleep well, you're not going to hunt well. And you're probably going to be sore as well from being in the field, from sitting in an airplane seat, whatever. A little bit of Advil or ibuprofen will take away the inflammation in your joints. It'll tame the aches. It'll help you sleep. You'll get up fresh and hunt hard the next day. Next one, NyQuil. That's NyQuil and Dayquil, or better yet, Mucinex D, the 12-hour caplets. For if you get real sick, you can take one of those in the morning and actually hunt pretty effectively and feel reasonably good through the day. And then the last thing is just some basic ibuprofen for use in the field. If you get real sore, maybe you got an old knee injury or something like that. Maybe your back just hurts. And some energy powders. I like to take energy powders if I'm working real hard to feel better, work harder, and always keep a couple of spares in your pack so you can give your buddy one so you don't get cranky when you work him hard too.
Well, that's good info. I'd wondered about the malaria thing, and I mean, anything else? Any other shots or other medications you're typically? I assume you just go to the doctor and say, "Hey, I've got a trip to Africa coming," and they'll write you whatever you need.
Pretty much, the common ones are going to be, well, malaria is the most common. There are places where they have typhoid, they have yellow fever and so forth, but almost never, almost never are you required by the country to have those inoculations before you come in. And almost never are you going to need the malaria prophylactic. By the way, get the antibiotic for antibiotic appropriate stuff, but antibiotics make your skin sensitive to sun, so don't take it unless you have to, because you're going to be in the sun a lot in Africa. The one that I've used for actual malaria prevention is called Malarone. And that's something that Craig Boddington told me to get. He's the most experienced African hunter I know. And it messes with some people. It can give you like impacted bowels a little bit. It can give you some weird dreams at night, but I've never had it mess with me. So it's something you can't take long-term though. I think about 30 days is the maximum. They suggest you start it 2 days before you arrive in Africa, continue it through till 2 days after, and you're done.
So when deciding whether to take that, are you discussing with the outfitter, your PH on, is it something that's needed in this area, or?
Yeah, generally you just ask them, hey, have you seen a lot of malaria lately? And they'll tell you. And the other thing is just to look at bugs. If there are mosquitoes everywhere, take that stuff, because there's going to be a nasty lady mosquito that sucked blood out of somebody with malaria, and you just don't want to risk it. Anyway.
Matt and I, we quit taking it last time we were there. They gave us a headache, and it was just like that, just that dull, droning headache that you could never get rid of it. And so finally, we were about 2 days in, like, I'm out. But they
If you
said
ha-
that, hey,
Interesting.
there's nothing going on here. I mean, if you go near the village and you spend time near the village, yeah, I would take it. But in the camp, nobody was sick. I mean, it was fine.
And I don't think we saw more than a few mosquitoes the entire
Yeah,
trip.
one maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, folks, just goes without saying, if you have a standard condition, something like diabetes or maybe a really savage allergy, take what you need and take double what you need so that you can hand one EpiPen or, whatever you need off to your PH. Just give them a briefing on what happens. If I end up unconscious by the trail, either rub some sugar inside my mouth or punch me with this EpiPen, whatever your particular cure is. It just goes without saying, don't be silly and forget crucial medications and take double what you need.
Yeah, to your point,
take it along.
Benadryl is the only thing I was going to add to that list, just for that.
Let's bounce through some more crucial gear items. Kick it back to you, Austin.
All right, you touched on, battery packs. Most of the places that we go, I mean, geez, they've all had electricity. They're, maybe they're on a generator, maybe they're on solar, whatever it is, but always take at least one battery pack. Yeah, I like a fairly small one that just, it'll get you through the day. Sometimes when you're running with a buddy that uses a camera a lot, he needs your battery pack too.
What are you talking about?
You know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so I'll carry one for me and one for Joseph. But no, battery pack was a good one. So some little stuff here. So, a lot of times we go to Africa, it is their winter, right? It's our summer here, it's their winter there. So it's a little bit, cool, especially in like the deserty areas where the air is really dry. In the morning, I mean, you can see frost on stuff. So one of my favorite things for all day is, we call them wild rags. It's just a silk scarf, right? Take those with us. They keep you warm, kind of, help you warm that blood flow up in the mornings. But also, when you sweat through them, they have a cooling effect to them as well, right? And so they're great for all day. Once you start stripping layers off as you get to stalking or hiking or whatever, then you've got that. I mean, it's just a universal tool that's lightweight, doesn't take up any room at all. That's one of the big things that I love. And then also, I always take, and these things have been so many places, I mean, they're getting holy, but just a really lightweight merino glove.
Yeah.
This is almost the only thing I wear. I'm not a glove fan. I can't stand them. But those I love. I can throw them on like if I'm on the truck in the morning. It's a little bit cool, right? You can take them off, shove them in your pocket, shove them back in your pack. They're unobtrusive and lightweight and easy. And so you just need a little bit of something to cut that chill early in the morning because once the sun bounces, it warms up really fast. And so, like the pack, we'll throw a layer in there. Maybe it's just a rain jacket to block the wind. Maybe it's a puffy vest or something like that. But those two things right there are two of the things that I may or may not take that puffy, but I will always have those.
Yeah. Yep. I take, similar to you, Austin, I'll take a battery pack. The best ones I've used are the Poseidon Pro by Dark Energy. They're about the size of a modern phone now, but they'll charge that phone about 2.5 times, and they'll charge that sucker in 20 to 30 minutes. They're fast. And they're waterproof. You can drive over them with your truck and you won't break them. I do a similar thing with the Silk Wild Rag on some occasions. I have also used, I think, what they just call a buff, like a tube that you can pull over your face. You can pull that up over if you want to protect your face from the sun or whatever. But I don't think it's quite as classy as a Silk Wild Rag, and probably doesn't have quite the cooling effect on you. And then one comment: I love a puffy vest, like Austin mentioned, but I take more of a shell type jacket. And I don't mean like a little synthetic shell. I'll try and take a good canvas type shell because if you get into thorns and burrs in Africa, they will flat out shred your puffy into, nothing but down puffs on the wind. So the best one I've used is actually, unfortunately, no longer made, but it's by Red Kettle, and it was made out of ventile. I'm not sure it's how it said, cotton, which is a dense weave. But heck, I mean, anything like a good Carhartt jacket, nice earth tone colors, be just fine in Africa. Okay, so I've just bounced, like, springboarded off of yours, Austin. I'm gonna add since we're talking about clothing a little bit, just decent earth tone type pants, like an olive green or a brown, tan, whatever. Don't wear khakis because they appear white when the sun hits them. And that's an African pet peeve. A lot of first timers show up in their full khaki outfit thinking this is how one dresses in Africa. And then they glow like a glow stick in the sun, right? A lot of different types of pants work well. I like ones with built-in knee pads for some types of hunting because you can end up doing a lot of crawling in some rocks and gravel and so forth. And like Austin mentioned, it's usually their fall or winter, so it's not too hot. People envision going to Africa and sweating. Sometimes that'll happen, but more often you get cold. Any questions inspired by all this knowledge, Landon?
I definitely had a lot of questions about the clothing, and I assume it varies quite a bit depending on the season, the time of the year you're there, and probably the region as well. But yeah, you see all the PHs wearing shorts, and I just can't imagine hunting in shorts. But yeah, it seems like just a good pair of, I guess. And my follow-up question, I guess, would be, would you have like an easy parallel for guys to kind of identify with? I mean, would it be like a early September, out west kind of similar temps swings?
Yeah. Exactly. Weather. It can range from like late August where you're hitting the 90s. I mean, I hunted a buffalo a couple times in temps over 100 degrees. So is Austin, but that's the exception. I would say September, the full month of September is a prime example of the temperatures that you'll reach. As far as hunting in shorts, it's funny. Yeah. It's hard to get used to at first, especially when they come out bundled in a big coat and they're wearing shorts.
Yeah, right.
But the temperature swings there can be really dramatic, 40 plus degrees from morning till midday. Yeah. So they like a breathable, type of lower, not pants, but shorts. The one other thing I was once told is my buddy Jock Strauss said, hey, this is another reason we wear shorts. So I looked over and he lifted up one leg and flicked a tick off his shin. He said, you can feel him crawling.
Yeah.
In shorts, where when you're wearing pants, a lot of times you don't feel them crawling.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not that there are a lot of ticks. In some areas there are. But for the most part, you're going to get ticks on you if you hug your eland or your kudu or something like that a bit too tight while you're taking pictures.
So Landon, I'll just for specifics here. I know Joseph used a lot of different stuff, and I found something that works for me. And what I ended up doing was, so those like Kuyu's Katana stretch pants, like they're really tough, really abrasion resistant. I mean, gosh, I have many trips on those, but the same thing, just all dark colors, greens and dark grays and stuff like that, and some darker browns. But those have been really good. My only suggestion on those is like when we were in Mozambique, I wish they did have the ability to slide some knee pads in, just on the removable ones. That would be my only thing. But those things are the perfect weight. When they're hot, they've got the zips on the side. You can get a good ventilation. Yeah. When they're cool, I mean, maybe you just throw a little light merino layer underneath them. I mean, they're the most versatile pants. And I have literally traveled all over the world in all different places with those things. And they have been incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Awesome.
And then I just use a lightweight shirt. Some of them you might think of them more as like fishing shirts. Like, Orvis will have some of them. My biggest deal is I have got to have a zippered pocket in the chest. If that phone goes in there, it doesn't fall out. That's kind of my thing. Poncho brand makes some really good ones now that I really like. I think you have one of those. I think I sent you one of those green poncho ones, Joseph. Yeah.
Great shirt.
But those are good. I was sitting here looking on the website actually. So the Tiburon, their hybrid snap shirt, that's been a really nice one. Zippered pockets on both sides. I like the cuffs on them. They don't have the button cuff. They're more of an elastic cuff, so they're not falling over your hands and whatnot. Since I have like small hands, but anyway, so those are the ones that I've gone to almost exclusively, and I can just layer up a little bit if I need to.
Yeah. Find something that works for you and stick with it. I'm enough of a traditionalist that I like wearing a wool Pendleton shirt and then a Filson wool vest over it. You get kind of that traditional plaid checkering that breaks up your shapes a little bit, but it's not camo. And they're super quiet, super durable. And if it's going to be real hot, I'll just throw on like a merino base layer, especially if it's a t-shirt type. And then I can take off the shirt and the vest if it gets real hot and keep hunting in that. Funny enough, there's a line of pants made by a company, I think called Noble, that's marketed through the local Baumgars out here in the West. Baumgars is like a feed and farm store. You can find them on sale for 25 to 30 bucks on holiday weekends or whatever. And they make some real nice earth tone colors. They fit me great. They're kind of a supple but canvasy type material. I've come to love hunting in them, and I can get like 5 pairs for what I'd pay for something from Sitka or Kuyu or whatever.
Yeah.
Bad idea. So I'd wondered about thermals or base layers, and both of you did allude to that. So that's good. Maybe worth throwing in the pack as well, huh? Or in the kit.
Yeah, a thin merino wool, because you are going to sweat in them. Wool is antibacterial, antimicrobial. It doesn't smell as much after you've used it a few times. And just one set of thin base layer, top and bottom. You may or may not put them on depending on what the day's forecast looks like, but they take up very little room. And I wrap my camera in one of them just while it's in my day pack to protect it.
Yeah. What about gaiters? Any application there?
Never had a need for them in Africa. What about you, Austin?
So I'm a really huge fan of tall boots. Always have been. I found here a couple years ago, I found some like 1950s or 1960s vintage Russell moccasins that are like a 16-inch top. I love those boots. They do give me some of that leg protection from, just the thorns and everything else. Is it necessary? No, that is a personal preference all day long. Would I take a pair of gaiters if I didn't take those? Nope, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I really enjoy them. And so a good, comfortable hiking boot, if you're in those mountainous regions, I mean, you may want some more of a technical boot. We've been hunting those in our Courtneys quite a bit. Those have been great. I love them. I've taken my Crispies in the past. They're fine. But really the ones that I'm going to grab are going to be those Russells. I love them.
And you'll end up doing a lot more sneaking on sand and gravel than you will be doing climbing through boulders and in steep terrain. And really, you're almost never going to be in water, so you don't need a waterproof boot. That's one reason I love the Courtneys so much. They're just leather. They breathe fantastic. Yeah. They're quiet. They're comfortable. If you're just taking something that you have around your house, honestly, a good trail running type shoe or a very lightweight hiking boot's going to be about perfect for most of it.
And just one pair of boots is usually fine. Do you wear that on the plane, or do you? Yeah.
One will get you through, especially if they're quality and well broken in. You do need that. You're not likely to get them wet and muddy and have to give them a day to dry out. So yeah, one is fine. It doesn't hurt to take a spare pair, especially something like, I keep saying it, but a trail running shoe along with something that's a little more robust. I typically just take my Courtneys and I wear them for 90% of my African hunting, but I will take a trail runner type something to wear around camp or whatever, or if I just want to change for my feet while I'm hunting.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I usually wear my hunting boots on the airplane, and then pack another set of like slip-ons, like Merrells or something like that, just for, around camp in the evening time, let your feet relax and kind of air out.
How about some more hardware, Austin?
Oh, let's see. What's next? My favorite carry-on I've ever had is that guy right there. Joseph, you had one first. Turn me on to that. See, there's no new wheels here. There's no need to reinvent a wheel. This thing with the compression straps in it, and I don't even know what the model is. I mean, I went on the website and let's just call it Sick as Roller Bag. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's other ones out there now, but it has a little bit of a dome top in it. That guy, I mean, I can pack for Africa in that alone and have room to spare. I mean, it is awesome. I love it. It's really a top-notch pack, or a little bag there. So that one, I can't recommend that one enough.
Really durable and nearly waterproof. It's got kind of rubberized material and good zippers. Yeah, they're fantastic. I'm going to bump through a few little simple gear items just to talk about some crucial stuff that often doesn't get mentioned. Sunscreen, and if you need it, sunglasses are pretty important on some of those real hot days in Africa. The sunscreen can even help if you just have wind burn, right? Protection for the muzzle of your rifle. Now, yellow looks funny on your muzzle of your rifle, but it works and it's easy to see here on the camera. But some electrician's tape or some other type tape, whatever you prefer, to cover your muzzle, not usually needed for wet weather, but for sand and dust, sometimes can be really helpful. Additional on the rifle maintenance side, I like to take, this is an Otis ripcord, a Hoppy's bore snake, whatever the case may be, in the correct bore diameter for your rifle, and pre-lube it with something like a CLP, cleaner, lubricant, preservative type thing. And with these, you just drop one end down through your chamber, pull that sucker through, and the thick part of that bore snake or ripcord will pull any debris and dust and whatnot out of your barrel. If you're thinking, well, do I need to go and then shoot, 3 shots, foul my bore, whatever, because I don't want a cold bore or a clean bore or an oiled bore change, that's kind of on you. If you've got a lot of dirt or crud in your barrel and then you do several pull throughs with this, yeah, you might want to. But candidly, most of the shots in Africa are inside 200 yards. And if your shot strays a half inch or an inch from your standard point of impact, you're never going to know it. Neither is the animal. If you're anticipating taking some longer shots, then yeah, go shoot a few, check your scope, whatever. One crucial gear item that we haven't touched on yet, but is your shooting rest, right? You're going to take a rifle. You can use the PH's shooting sticks. They might be 3-legged sticks. They might be quad sticks, which are gaining in popularity in Africa. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. But something that I never, ever go without, because I'll find a prone position and shoot anytime I can, is a good bipod. And my preference is a quick detach bipod by a massive margin. And I've used a lot of different ones. The lightest ones and the ones that are most compact and easy to run that I've used are the Spartan Javelin series. These ones have orange legs, which is kind of cool. You can find those on their website right now. Just makes them visible, less easy to lose, kind of fun in photographs as well. But just a super good adjustable lightweight bipod with a rare earth spigot, magnet in a spigot on top. You just plug that into a socket on the bottom of your rifle. I can do that while I'm diving into a prone position. I carry these in the left-hand cargo pocket on my pants, just snake them out, plug it in, pop that sucker open, and I'm good to go in a prone position. Piggybacking on that, just because I love Spartan gear, I use, if I'm anticipating having to take precise shots in a lot of underbrush up to waist or even chest high, I'll take a set of Spartan quad sticks. Okay. These have gotten pretty advanced as well. They've got a magnetic deal there that just keeps them together and quiet when they're all folded up. They've got a broad rubberized tray for your backside so you can slide the tow stock back and forth and get fine-tuned adjustments. And that same spigot plugs into the adapter on your rifle. You can run this as a big wide bipod type shooting sticks type thing. Just spread those 2 feet out and it's a quick handling system. Then separate it. You got a front and rear rest. I've made really precise shots with these out past 400 yards. They're a bit expensive, yeah, but so is a missed or wounded, really world-class animal. If you get used to using those, take them with you because every set's a little different. For dangerous game, I never use the quad sticks. They're too fiddly and they take a little bit too much time. Dangerous game, you're almost always going to be shooting inside 100 yards, maximum 150. So you don't need quite the precision. You need flexibility and speed. But these, for a big kudu standing in chest-high brush at 350 yards, they can absolutely make all the difference. And they use the same adapter as my bipod, so it's kind of a no-brainer.
Are you carrying a tripod as well? And,
almost For spotting scope,
Yeah.
almost never.
Interesting. Okay.
There are cases. For example, there's a couple areas in Namibia where I've hunted kudu, like high mountain country elk and deer, and will glass a lot. And you may end up taking a shot way out there. And for those, it's good to be able to evaluate a kudu with a spotting scope, pick him out in the thick brush or whatever. But on those days, generally, you kind of know you're going to be hunting that style, and you can take your spotting scope and your tripod if you want to. Hand him off to the tracker or his backup guy. Sometimes there's 2 trackers, and they'll carry him for you. And if you need him, you've got him. I will say that very few PH over there actually have high quality spotting scopes and tripods, which is almost hard to imagine for us Western hunters that rely on them so much. But what it tells you is for their style of hunting, they're not real necessary. So if you think you need one, you probably don't. But if you really know for sure that you want one at your disposal, you probably should take your own.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's hard to imagine going in the field without one, just from my limited, very narrow-minded experience.
Yeah.
You know,
I carry a little compact Swarovski, one of their little angled orange jobs now because I've used it so much for filming shot impact. Yeah.
Makes sense.
But I don't actually use it very often for evaluating an animal in Africa. How about you, Austin? Do you carry a spotting scope ever?
No, but I'm not the Western hunter that you boys are, and so I rarely have a spotting scope ever.
Yeah.
I'll take one like, in Kodiak or Colorado and stuff like that, but no, definitely not to Africa. I honestly think it would come in more handy to hold a camera to take photos than it would to be actually using the spotter. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice to be able to get impacts on camera,
that is fun.
Like that little ATX could be a happy medium there where it's small, compact.
Yeah. And it's really good glass. I've loved mine. It's been a real good tool. And now that I'm doing more and more video, it's becoming more and more important to try and get those.
Sure.
Anything from just footage of an animal moving across the country to getting those kill shots. Yeah.
I'm going to ask this question, throw it out to you here. As a marketing guy, have you used any of like the video glasses, like Ray-Ban has them? I can't remember what they're called. Have you seen those where you can actually like get a, first person point of view?
You're talking like the Meta glasses or
whatever. Meta glasses. That's it. Yeah.
I guess I'm behind the times. I haven't gone there at all, but I could see a lot of value in them. I mean, getting basically real time point of view type footage, I'd have to, I don't even know what kind of quality video you're getting out of those, but
from what I've researched, it's really pretty good. Joseph and I were filming each other shooting reed buck one day, and I thought, man, that would be, how cool would that have been to actually get that first person point of view versus like me or him over each other's shoulder. And then he forgot to film my double reed buck kill, so that would have been cool.
I didn't forget. I was just 50 yards behind you. Couldn't see him. Oh, that one still eats at me. That would have been a great video clip.
I'm giving him the like, hey, come on.
I've thought about that. I've seen some video used from those glasses. The only tricky part is you turn your head when you're aiming, right?
Yeah.
So typically the animal in your frame is going to be way off in the side if it's in it at all. What works, but is just awkward and funky looking, is to put a GoPro on your hat and then crank that sucker off to the side so it looks downrange when you aim your rifle, right? But then you got to have a GoPro perched on your head all day.
Yeah, that's kind of a hassle. Yeah, that's tough.
I got a few more little gear items following up on the rifle thing. Most of your PHs will have tools that they can find if necessary, but very few of them carry what I would call like a dedicated rifle tool kit on them or in their trucks. So I've gone to carrying just a basic fix-it sticks kit, and it's falling apart here, but I've got a punch in there, a brass punch that I can drift iron sights with. I've got a wrench with a couple of Torx adapters, and then all your little bits for scope rings, action bolts, all those things. And a couple times I've actually needed them. I have had at least on 2 occasions to switch scopes that went south. One was mine, one was somebody else's in Africa. And that's a bad deal if you don't have the tools.
Yeah.
Hey, do you have your little loophole set of wrenches there on your desk?
Okay. They're like that, but those ones say SIG on the outside of the case.
Whatever. But and there is one. I go grab it here in a minute. I'm gonna grab something else. But so you keep going. I'm gonna talk about that. Talk about a multi-tool because I know you have one of those.
Yeah, so that's something I won't go without if I can help it. Is just a good multi-tool, whether your flavor is Leatherman, which is my preference, or Burger or whatever. Just don't take a cheap knockoff because they don't work as well. But I've used these for everything from pulling thorns out of my backside to fixing rifles to, cutting up sandwiches in the field or whatever. Probably the best example of when one of these came in really crucial actually happened in Arizona, not in Africa, but it could have been a very similar deal. I stepped on a mesquite thorn in a stocking shoe with a kind of a crepe sole, and that sucker's 1.5 inches long. It went all the way up through the sole and embedded a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch into the sole of my foot, right inside the ball of my foot. Without my multi-tool where I could dig into that crepe sole, grab the base of that thorn and pull that sucker out, I couldn't get the boot off.
You did. Yeah. Wow.
I'd have had to cut the top of my boot off to get my foot out if I hadn't had a multi-tool. So, yeah. Gosh. And on the subject,
they're great for pulling cholla too.
Oh yeah.
You ever got stuck with a cholla cactus? Yeah.
That'll make you think some unpleasant thoughts.
Yeah.
Have that toxin on the thorn that burns.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, of course, you're probably never going to need it for skinning or cutting up your game because in Africa, I've touched on this before, but they have skinners that, for an American DIY guy, it's real hard in the beginning to watch somebody else do all your animal processing because you've always felt a certain sense of duty and ownership over the animals you've taken, right? The first time I did that, I pulled out my knife and went to jump in and help, and the PH kind of kindly held me back, and he said, "We admire the sentiment, but these guys are very professional, and their jobs are considered very high ranking within their communities. And if you step in and start helping
in what they do,
I said they'll take it as if you feel like they're not doing a good enough job.
Interesting.
So the best thing you can do is stand back and just watch and enjoy the moment. Let them do their job they're so good at, appreciate it, and then, just he said you'll get used to it. He was right. It didn't even take long.
A lot of those questions along the etiquette side of things, and I think I have fears that I would be that nightmare client that's, just because 99% of what I do is DIY, the whole guiding the guide thing. I'm sure that's going to be something that I'm going to have to work really hard to kind of learn to be a good client too.
You'll come by it pretty quickly. I will say there are a lot of times in America where I've wanted to guide my guide pretty badly because they can be pretty raw. My worst story, excuse me, I showed up at a Nebraska deer hunt, was getting hauled out to stand for my evening sit, and I asked my guide if he'd seen many deer shot out of that, and he said, "I've never seen a deer shot." I was like, "What?" He said, "I just know where the stands are, but I've never actually killed a deer." It's like, oh my gosh, are you serious?
Yeah.
And you're my guide in a fairly high dollar whitetail deer hunt. Well, in
different
Africa,
story with PHs from what I understand.
Yeah. Those guys spend 200 to 300 days per year hunting. They're going to see multiple hundreds of animals taken during that period. They are professional to a level that no American guide that spends, 2 to 6 weeks each fall guiding, or even 3 months out of the year guiding, can ever hope to achieve. It's fantastic. You learn that respect very quickly. And I've never met a bad African PH. I know they can happen, but I've never encountered one myself.
Well, my understanding is that certification process is very stringent and laborious, right? Like it means a lot.
And it involves usually a fairly rigorous apprenticeship and so forth. All right, Austin, what you got?
All right, so I couldn't find my little loophole tool because it's probably in a bag or something somewhere. But one of the things that I want to bring back up, so this is a little, it's almost like a shotgun sleeve that I got from Armageddon Gear. So it's wax canvas. There's a little bit of padding to that deal. It has a buckle that comes over across the top, so it really secures it so your gun doesn't slide out. But this one came in tremendously handy when we were in Mozambique trekking through the swamps. Oops, sorry. Where I could slide that double rifle in there, and have a strap to carry it as well. I mean, traditionally you don't put a strap on a double rifle. You can, but we're not doing that.
Yeah.
But these are great. They also make a tremendous little lightweight bag. So if you did want to carry a bag, put behind the toe your stock, they have a really cool one. I think, Joseph, you have one or two of those if I remember right. But that one was pretty cool. It's not necessary, but it's just, I had to throw that plug out there because it's a cool piece of kit.
They make some great gear.
Yeah. Yep. Makes a nice item that you can use to pack your rifle in that gun case like we were talking earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I find really useful, part of it's making a living, right? I take a recording device. You can use your phone, take voice memos or whatever, but sometimes it's just nice to record thoughts in the moment or shortly after as you're watching the sun go down or something of a particularly important thing that's happened to you during the day. Same thing goes for a little compact journal, something you can keep in your day pack, have on your nightstand at night. Just jot down anything from technical details such as shot distance, impact, bullets path through the vitals. This is all important research for me. Animals' reaction on impact, how far you tracked it, and so forth, right up to, how that sunset made you feel on your last night in Africa. So those aren't necessary to success, but they can be crucial to retaining the vivid nature of your safari.
That makes sense.
Any other questions from your list of need to knows, Landon?
Well, I mean, you just touched on the recording. What about camera? I mean,
I've got one of those here
guys
too.
Are just carrying phones these days, but
yeah, I find it's better to have a nice compact camera. Just for giggles.
It's
this
tools
is
of the trade, right?
This is a big digital SLR with a really high-end zoom on it. This one's a 70-300. And the only reason you might need something like that or want something like that, you won't need it. You might want it so you can take pictures. There are some extraordinary opportunities. Like you get a giraffe standing against a sunset next to one of those classic flat-topped African trees in the evening, and he's 300 or 400 yards away. You can still get a great shot with a camera like this. Your phone is not going to cut it. That said, any of the newer phones, let's say made in the last 2 to 3 years, that are of high quality, whether you're an iPhone guy or an Android guy, will take really good pictures. I do recommend, just because of the nature of my business, the iPhones, because it's so easy for me to upload photos. You just airdrop them to my work computer, which is also an Apple computer, right? And you can airdrop them to your friends. You can create the shared groups and so forth, where you can put a whole safari, everybody's best favorite photos, in one folder that everybody can access. And the most recent stuff, like from the 15s on, are just spectacular in their ability to get good photos and video.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I've found is if you're not carrying a big camera, depending on the hunt, I may or may not, a really compact little tripod or holder for your phone to mount to a small tripod can be a very valuable tool as well if you're not carrying a big camera.
Absolutely. And I do a lot of short video clips, sometimes some long video clips with my phone clamped into the top of a tripod. Yep.
Yeah.
If you like making good video clips, get yourself some of the I think they call it the DJI Mini Pro or something like that. Little microphones that clips on your lapel, and you get really good sound that way.
Are your PHs usually good on the photo side? Are they taking photos, or are they relying on your equipment to take photos for you, or how's that usually go about?
Generally, they'll want to use your equipment because then they don't have to transfer the files to you.
Right.
But generally, yes, they range from adequate to really competent with taking pictures. I've had a few PHs that are legitimate professional level photographers, and they are fantastic. And then I've had a few where you're like, let's try a few other things, and eventually you get decent photos. But I mean, anybody that's hunted with me knows that I turn into a proverbial pain in the hindquarters after a kill because I get real excited about trying to capture the moment in really good photography. It's crucial to my living as a writer, right, for magazine articles.
You know, here's my take is I tell people I have never once regretted taking too many photos.
Yeah.
And it feels silly in the moment. It's like, oh, let's try this angle. Let's take one more of this. And you feel like kind of a diva, but I think there's many, many times where I've gone back and thought, man, I wish I would have taken one more shot there or tried one more angle there. I've never regretted taking too many.
Yeah. And conversely, from my end, some of the best photos I've taken have always been that, let's just try one more thing and then we're done. I promise. And it turns out really good.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It is worth saying, if you're running a phone, get in your settings and set your camera to the highest quality, whether it's resolution or whatever you can. If you can take photos in RAW, do it, because your phone will capture a lot more information. You can then anything from printing a big poster, of a giant kudu bull that you killed on canvas or something to hang in your living room, to publishing photos in magazines, stuff that I do, to just showing your friends and being able to zoom in on detail. Don't use your camera on its like high efficiency, low res setting.
Right. Good call.
Austin, any more nuts and bolts to showcase?
See, gosh, and again, they're not made anymore, but those red kettle slings. So just a simple, lightweight sling, I mean, you said it a million times, but you're not the big Cobra type slings. I like these because they have a little bit of grippy rubber on the back of them. This one does have the ability to, with the quick release to where you can get it off your shoulder fast. I've never had that issue. Never even used a quick release on it. But that thing, I love that lightweight, just canvas compact sling. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a leather one that doesn't have buckles and just has a slide. I think it was made by like Montana Leather Works or something in the past. Love that one. Hunted with it for years. But from there, let's go to this guy. Okay.
Might want a binocular.
You might want some optics.
Next question.
Okay.
Yeah.
But a good carrier that, and I like these versions of them better than the old ones, of where there's, they don't have the openings in the side. I have filled binoculars with snow and sand and everything else crawling. So the ones that have an actual like complete enclosure, I like those a lot better. That give you more protection. I keep my bipod on the side of mine. I'm not a big fan of cargo pants or stuff in those cargo pockets. So I keep that there. But that's got all the other stuff. Of course, typically I have little knife sharpeners and stuff in there. Those things, I'll take this out. I think we talked about this when you released the last strike. When I noticed packing for a trip one time that I could slide my strike into any other strike's sheath or little scabbard there, and it just clicks. So I just take an extra one, I throw it in my ammo box. I leave this one buckled in there because I don't want to take it out. But then again,
and that's because you're putting it in your carry-on. That's an important note. You're taking the knife out because you're going to check that on the plane with you.
Correct, absolutely. So that way I can just put this in there without the knife. Yep, exactly. But the other thing, good glass, right? I don't know what that. Oh, it's blood. Look at there. But those I love the range finding binocular. I mean, I can't imagine ever going backwards on those. I have a rangefinder that I haven't carried in years now. I really like bought Jody a little pair, my wife, a little pair of the 8x42s or 8 by
So
32, excuse me.
you're holding up the Swarovski EL range right there for folks that aren't
Correct.
watching. Yeah.
Sorry. Yep. The 10x42s. Yeah. And they are my go-to. They really are. But the more I carry those little 8x32s, the more I really, really like them. I mean, they are lightweight. I mean, they feel like they weigh half of what those do.
Mm-hmm. Super
Yeah,
compact.
but
Yeah.
definitely good glass because you're going to be in a situation to where your pH and your tracker are going to be looking at something, and you want to do the same thing. You want to figure out, okay, well, what are we looking at? Maybe you just need that little bit of edge to peer through the brush or whatever, look into a shadow. For instance, on this last Cape Buffalo trip, we were looking into the sun, right? On
Yeah.
the one that I shot, and he was face on. The sawgrass was just almost up to the top of his chest. And so my PH said, "Hey, why don't you stop and look through your binoculars real quick and get a picture of what you're actually looking at?" And so I did. I stopped, came up with the binoculars, was able to see perfectly the shape of his neck, where his neck went into his chest, and from there get a point of reference off of his head position to think, okay, well there's my vital shot. If I would have had my binoculars with me, that would have been nearly impossible.
And good binoculars because it's hard to look into the sun and actually see clearly. So quality
Hmm.
glass is really important.
Hmm. And something to keep your lenses clean.
Yeah. So I'm using the same FHF vinyl carrier that you're using. And attached to that, I keep a Garmin InReach Mini 2. I've never needed to use it in any place for an emergency, but it does have that SOS button to call in the cavalry if you need it. And anywhere in the world, you can send satellite text messages to your family if you need to. So that's kind of cool. I do the same thing, carry my knife on the side. But if documentation is required, this just applies to hunting elsewhere in the world. For example, if you're carrying a hunting license, I keep it in that zippered pocket right there, along with the Allen wrench I need to adjust my scope if I need to make a correction, and a spare battery. And when I just grab stuff to go out the back door and hunt, I need my ammo carrier, my bino, which has the knife, my hunting license, binocular rangefinder, and an emergency device, and my rifle. And I can go spend a day in the field. I'll get hungry, I'll get thirsty, but I can spend a day out there and not be unequipped. So pretty crucial stuff right there. As far as hitting on that rangefinder thing, man, I will still occasionally use a handheld rangefinder when I'm bow hunting because a little bit smaller movement, right? Smaller piece of gear. But I'm like you, I cannot fathom of ever going back to a dedicated full-size binocular and rangefinder.
Yeah.
It's just too much movement, too much added weight, too much extra fiddling when I need to be executing a shot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Integrated. Definitely
yep,
the way to go.
Yeah.
all of my non-range finding binoculars have ended up in the house, and they sit by doors and windows for using at the house, and that's it.
I do the same thing.
And so,
Yep.
do you have a scope cover there with you?
I do, yeah. I just wanted to show this real quick. I've tried everything from the flip-up caps to bikini-type covers, which work pretty well, like the little rubberized ones or whatever. But in the end, I always come back to using a neoprene kind of springy type case because if I fall with that, like especially if it's on my pack, which isn't really applicable here, but if I were to bang it against that, it offers some protection. And you can take that sucker off, and if if things are getting real western, you just chuck it, and it's not a huge loss, right?
Your
You can
tracker will
take it
pick
off.
it up.
Probably, yeah. You stick it in your pocket, whatever. Those can be a good kind of protective tool. That said, I rarely use one. When you're traveling, folks, in Africa, on the truck, in the truck, you're probably going to have your rifle in one of those soft cases you flew in with. So it's protected. It doesn't get dusty and so forth. When you get out of the truck or off the truck, your tracker will generally hand you the rifle, and usually he's savvy enough to know whether you need your light rifle or your dangerous game rifle, and off you go. I guess a few other crucial gear items. This is a rifle that I've set up that I'm taking to New Zealand actually this month. It's a 7 PRC in the new Browning X-Bolt 2 Pro, and I want to touch on this sucker right here, little suppressor. I've come to the point now where I really don't like hunting without a suppressor. And I get asked lots and lots of times because I take my suppressor to Africa. There are places internationally you can't. Mexico, Canada, Australia, they're all no-goes. Africa, you absolutely can and should. Your PHs will love you for it. Yeah. And there's a lot of conflicting information out there.
Yeah, I'd heard conflicting information about it. Yeah.
So when I'd taken them a few times, never had an issue, but got concerned one time. So I interviewed Brandon Maddox, the owner of Silencer Central, and probably the smartest guy in the suppressor legal world that actually is one of us, right, that I know. And he gave me some very succinct information and said, I can provide you the documents if you want, but the simple answer is this: yes, you can take it, and yes, you can bring it back in. The only dicey stuff is, let's say you fly through JFK, New York, right, where silencers / suppressors are regarded with suspicion. I've done it. And the police there in the airport that checked my luggage were very courteous, very professional, asked about the model, how effective it was, and admired it and said, have a great trip.
Really?
So
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't have any hesitation about taking a suppressor to Africa. I do it every time. Landon, you know, I've used the Gunworks suppressors a lot. Absolutely love those. This one is one I've just started using, and I'll comment on it since I've shown it here on the show. That's the Dead Air Titanium Nomad XC. It's kind of a high volume suppressor that's about 6.5, pushing 7 inches long. High volume meaning it's got a lot of internal capacity. Made out of titanium, it's light, and man, it's a lot like the 6 Plus titanium Gunworks suppressor in weight, size, and effectiveness. Very quiet. So for those wondering what it is, that's what I'm using.
One of the quietest suppressors I've ever tested.
In your opinion?
Measured. Yeah,
really?
One of the quietest
That's
I've
cool.
ever tested.
That's great info. Yeah. I had noticed that on this 7 PRC 20-inch barrel, real quiet. Yeah, pretty cool. Holding up a scope here, I've got another one on the table. Something that you absolutely don't need to do in Africa is take a gigantic scope. Your shots are probably going to be inside 250 yards, maximum for most people 400 yards. We have taken a few longer than that in the course of probably 18 or 20 combined safaris. Austin, we've shot past 400 yards 3 times, maybe,
yeah.
So the percentage is low, right? You don't need magnification, high magnification. You don't need a parallax adjustment. You may not even need a dial-up turret, but I do like having a simple dial-up turret with a 0 stop and a 0 lock. Whatever brand you get, those are 2 things I really like, because you're going to be walking with and carrying your scoped rifle a lot. It'll be sliding in and out of cases, truck seats, and so forth. It's nice to have a locking turret.
Well, here's where I'll say it even on a shorter range rifle where it's good to have that locking turret on there and the ability to dial is, so I took my 9.3x62 to Mozambique, right? Well, I mean, if I'm remembering right, at 350 yards, it was dropping like, gosh, I want to say 40 inches,
a lot.
You know, a lot with a big 300 grain bullet, right? And so the elands that we were after, I mean, they were, our opportunities came out on some big open pans, and that, if it wasn't for that, I mean, I would not have connected on that first shot. I mean, I think I shot him at, around 260 or something like that the first time. So.
Well, for that rifle and that round, that is long range, right?
Right.
I mean,
That's great.
My definition is if you're having to compensate for bullet drop, it's long range. So I'm curious, Joseph, the you know me, right? My background, I like to be able to stretch things out. Is it more a function of just the opportunities being presented? Is it a function of how the pH is driving the hunt? Is it personal preference, or what do you think is driving that, where most everything is 400 in? And really that fits pretty typical with hunting it anywhere, even out west. it's a bell curve.
It's a combination of different factors, but the simplest, most straightforward answer is it's tradition there to stalk close and hit them hard. African animals are tough. Hitting them hard with a tough, heavy for caliber bullet up close generally just has better results, right? People come from all over the world to hunt Africa, and very few of them have the skill level needed to shoot long. But there's also a habitat thing. The habitat just lends itself to closer shots. But I think the biggest one is it's tradition and it's based in practicality, because people that are banging away at long distance at multiple animals are going to lose some of them. And if you wound something at 400, 500, 600 yards, and then you have to spend a day or two tracking it, you may or may not recover it. You're paying for it anyway.
Yeah.
And you've lost 1 or 2 days of hunting time that you've traveled a long way to try and get. And so why not experience the thrill of stalking close and then killing with authority and effectiveness inside their traditional hunting distances? But another big one too is they're not used to using bipods or laying down and shooting over pack there, because so often the underbrush doesn't allow it. And if you're shooting off a traditional 3-legged shooting sticks, 300 yards is a long shot. And 600 yards is not to be attempted, because things are going to go south. So a lot of it's the conditions. I guess in answer to your question, it's just a mix of factors, any one of which is probably adequate to say, get close. Now, there can be intentional exceptions. I went there in 2016 to test a new long-range bullet, and we sought out opportunities past 400 yards. And you can do that if you want to. My article assignment protocol decreed that for me, but man, I like to get close. It's more fun.
Sure. Right. And I assume some outfits are probably more friendly to that type of hunting than others as well.
Yeah, for sure. Some I know actually can cater to the longer range hunts if you want to.
Yeah.
But I would say by and large, most of them are going to try and get you close.
Get you close. Well, I mean, we're all trying to get close, right? I mean, there are not many of us that are looking for long shots, but on some instances, it's nice to have that in your tool belt.
Yeah. Oh, I like to be able to shoot long if conditions call for it. Austin shot a giant kudu across the canyon at, what was it, 476 or something like that?
542.
542, because there just was no humanly possible way to get closer. We sat on him on a high ridge for a couple of hours before he finally exposed his shoulder, and Austin put a great double lung hit on him, and we got that bull when attempting to stalk into that thorn brush thicket after him would have been impossible. Yeah. But like I say, that's the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah.
It is worth noting that you can take a rifle like that Browning I just showcased, which is absolutely capable of shooting very, very far, right? It's a good, accurate rifle. The classic thing to take to Africa is going to be something more in a nice walnut-stocked blued steel rifle. This one I'm holding up right now for those watching is my Ruger M77 Hawkeye African in 35 Whelen. And it's just a wonderful classic rifle with a barrel band, front sight, barrel band swivel stud, ebony 4-inch tip, express type sights, and quick detach scope rings by Alaska Arms, extended capacity floor plate. And just, I got lucky with this one. It's got some really nice wood on it. And this is like your quintessential African hunting rifle. But in 35 Whelen, it's going to max out at about 400 yards, maybe a tad more if you really work it out and know your rifle and have the right bullet. It's not impervious to moisture conditions and bad weather and so forth, but you're probably not going to encounter that much in Africa. So Africa is really a place that is optimized for taking the beautiful, fine firearms that you treasure and building memories with them.
Some tradition there.
Yeah. I mean, case in point, Austin took his 125-year-old Wesley Richards double rifle there and killed the oldest Cape buffalo taken in the Zambezi River Delta last year. Just don't get cooler than that.
That was cool. So, Landon, to your point about, tailoring to some different stuff there, a lot of those places, I've seen gentlemen that were not very mobile and in their 80s, and PHs be able to work with them to get them on animals still. Maybe they're not making long stocks like they were at one point in time, right? But they're still able to make that happen. The PHs are always so good about, figuring out what you can do and what you can't do. And to Joseph's point about, shooting long, I mean, if you can't, they're going to recognize that pretty quick and usually, limit you to, they're not going to tell you, hey, no, you can't do that. They're just going to get you closer,
Yeah.
and so they're very professional, very good at that. I have seen a couple operations of where they encourage you to shoot off the truck if you didn't put your, it's like, hey, we're not doing that. We're getting off the truck and we're going to make a stock. Like that's, I mean, I think I have shot one animal from the truck, and the only reason is because I couldn't get high enough to see it, and so I ended up standing on the very top of the truck on the sticks and took a high neck shot on an Iala. We made the stock, we just couldn't get to where he was at.
Yeah, we don't recommend hunting with people that like to bang stuff off the trucks. You're not going to have a good experience. Then it's just a killing field. Before I forget, one other really simple, crucial piece of gear, right? Hard plastic ammo container. Put a lock in up front. You can check that in just like that, although I prefer to put it in my duffel bag. If you're going to check it in just like this, make sure that you tape your bag tags to it somewhere where they can't get lost or whatever. But you will need something like this once you get in Africa to transport your ammo. So I just put my ammo in here. I'll generally add like my ammo carrier and a couple things, maybe some batteries or whatever in there, and put that in my additional checked bag. When you get to Africa, you're probably going to have to pull it out. It just depends on the gate agent you get. They'll put a tag on it. You check it to your final destination if you're doing a little short flight to Mozambique or some other location in South Africa. And then you'll collect that at your final destination just like that. But you will need a hard plastic lockable case designed for ammunition for your final leg there.
How much ammo do you usually travel with?
Usually the limit is either 11 pounds or 100 rounds, whichever comes first, and I like to max it out. So I'll typically take like 60 rounds for my light rifle and 40 rounds for a dangerous game gun. I don't anticipate shooting a lot of solids. If you're shooting all your solids up, you've screwed up and you're in problem solving mode now, right?
Yeah.
So I'll take about 10 solids and 30 what they call soft expanding bullets for a dangerous game rifle, and then about 60-ish for my plains game rifle, because you're going to do more shooting. You may loan it to some guys or whatever, and then if it's a common cartridge, like a 300 Win Mag, 30-06, whatever, you can leave ammo in Africa, which is really appreciated by your guides.
Sure. Makes sense.
It just is, I think it's worth noting that some countries make you pay for how many rounds you used while you're there. I think what's the worst we've seen, $2 a round or something. So it is what it is. Consider it part of the tip if you want to leave it there. That's typically not a big deal. But one of the funniest things that I have seen is in the Joburg airport, when you fly out, they take you back behind the counter to go check your rifles in and to leave. And there is a enormous, there was a bag and an enormous jar full of really high quality safari ammunition. That's sitting there.
People don't want to haul it back.
No, that they packed them properly and were confiscated. So either they were loose, they weren't in a locked case, whatever, right? Which is funny because they got over there with it, but they didn't get back. I don't know what happened. But anyway, there's a lot of money in there.
I highly recommend sterilizing your clothing, your jacket, your carry-on bags obsessively before flying to and back from Africa, anywhere internationally, because it's challenging to explain a loaded cartridge in your carry-on bags. Ask me how I know. And it adds a lot of stress to your trip that you really didn't need.
I believe it.
Ask me how I know that too. But anyway, just sterilize your stuff, check it rigorously. And I do things like I won't put loose cartridges in my day pack or in my vinyl case or in my pockets, because I know I would forget and leave that, and I'd pack this shirt to go home, right?
Inevitably, it'll happen.
So I keep them in the ammo box or in my belt cartridge carrier, nowhere else. That way I know when I head home where I can find all my empties. Either they're in the sand somewhere or they're in those places.
Yeah, makes sense.
We have lost ammunition before to those examples for cartridges that didn't technically exist yet, which was kind of funny.
Yeah, and a little bit
what
uncomfortable.
You do with that, just throw it away.
Yeah, don't take it to the news.
Yeah.
We're getting out of the crucial gear elements now, but I have a few other things I want to show. Well, this one's still pretty crucial. A good headlamp.
Oh, yeah.
Put that in your day pack. You probably won't need it in your pocket. But if you head out on a stalk, like right at last light, maybe stick it in your coat pocket or whatever, your pants pocket. But you can use these just hiking out of a big canyon where you've shot a kudu at last light or something. I've used them a lot actually doing photographs, doing photography where you can add some light on a subject if you don't have a good flash on your camera. Just helps, right? It helps you stay safe as you're hiking out.
And well, even around camp, walking back from dinner or back from the campfire to your cabin, I mean, it's a good idea to have some light so you don't slip on the slippery, slithery things.
Step on the puff adders in the path.
Yeah, that.
And then something like this, just a simple something to have a trucker's bath with you if you need to in the field or whatever. And then I don't have some here, but not lip gloss. What am I trying to say? Chapstick with some SPF protection, because your lips will get sunburned and windburned out there. Then finally, you should never go to Africa without some good reading, whether you use it on the airplane or in your camp, your bungalow, your tent at night, sitting around having a little siesta and rest after lunch, which sometimes the lunches in Africa are really cool. They'll build a little fire. They'll do kebabs. They'll hang a hammock. I've even had them roll out white tablecloths just for kicks and giggles. And it can be nice to lay in your hammock and read a book. We always get questions. What do you recommend reading? Of course, Death in the Long Grass by Peter Hathaway Capstick, absolute classic. If you haven't read that and his other books, do so.
On my list.
Yeah, number one.
Yeah.
And then this one is one I just read called The River of Doubt. It's about Theodore Roosevelt's exploration down a 1,000-mile tributary to the Amazon River.
Amazon. I did read this one. This is good.
Yeah, he almost died, and they did lose 3 of their party explorers. Some gnarly stuff they went through. What I appreciated more than anything was just the perspective on Theodore Roosevelt's life before, during, after his presidency, and then the resilience and toughness that he displayed on that journey teaches you so much about the type of man he was. He was my favorite U.S. president ever. So, well, that's a good read. If you haven't read it, folks, check it out.
I'd agree with that one. That one's phenomenal. One that I picked up, and this is kind of an interesting one. It was written by Ethan Hawke, so the actor, right? And it's this little bitty hardback book, and it's called Rules for a Night. And I love it. I picked it up in the SeaTac airport going through one time, and I've read it a couple times. I've given it to Grady. He's working on it right now. He's about halfway through it. The story was there were some nights in his family history when somebody passed away. They found these pieces of old letters and correspondence from this night to his kids, saying, "Hey, here's the things that you need to know, because I'm afraid that I'm going to this battle and I'm not going to be here to teach you about it." Turns out he didn't make it back. It's it may be a little bit exaggerated. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's a great story, but it's just a cool little read. I mean, it's kind of, it's emotionally and spiritually uplifting. It's just be a good human being with some cool illustrated stories. But what I like about it, it is so small and compact, and it's an easy read. It doesn't take a lot of thinking. Like that one's been one of my favorites to travel with and to read multiple times on trips.
I need to get a copy of that because I have not. That sounds like a must
Yeah,
have.
you kids would love it. I've been great for kids.
Cool. Another one similar to that is one of the small paperback copies of Robert Service's best poetry from the Klondike and from World War I and so forth. Some really terrific poetry there. I'm not usually a poetry guy. I love his stuff.
I've got one of those.
So before we wrap up here, Landon, I would like to kick this over to you to just ask any and all questions that you feel like you as a future African safari hunter would potentially be wondering about. Is there anything you can think of, however random, that people might be wondering about?
We covered just about everything. There were a couple just things that were kind of hanging. The bug question. I hate bugs, man. And is it? Yeah.
Western guys are weird.
I know. I'm a wimp. But, it is what it is, right? You're on the adventure of a lifetime. You put up with it. Is there anything to consider or plan for? Bring bug spray, just deal with it. Is it everywhere from non-existent to epic proportions? Or give me a little bit of background on the bug story.
It can range exactly that, from non-existent to epic. You will see some big gnarly bugs. I've found, silver dollar size spiders. We had 5-inch, not centipedes, but millipedes all over in Mozambique. Yeah. They're non-toxic, but incredibly cool. Gnarly critters. As far as poisonous stuff, though, I've never been bitten by anything venomous in Africa. Knock on wood, right? Yeah. I hope it never happens. But yeah, every 2 or 3 nights, you might come into your bungalow or your canvas tent or whatever and smell a little funny smell, and you look around and there's bugs dead laying along the corners, whatever. The cleaning lady has set off a little spray or bug bomb in there just to help keep them out of your pillow at night.
Yeah, many of the camps will have a can of bug spray just on your nightstand, especially those traditional camps for you. And you'll see that stuff. I would tell you, the Skin So Soft is what they recommended there with Zambezi Delta. I guess
it's a type of lotion with a natural bug inhibitor in it.
It works out here for gnats. It's the only thing that works for gnats out west.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. If you're really worried about it, you can get the little small bottles of that are like 100% DEET that'll melt your skin. But the other thing you can do is you can throw in a really lightweight head net. I mean, I can tolerate bugs everywhere else, just not in my face, right? And so, for instance, we were hunting, black bears in Southeast Alaska again, and without that head net, I would have been completely miserable. Not had that issue in Africa. I know that's what we're talking about, but it doesn't cost you weight-wise anything. Might be a good thing just to drop in the bottom of that pack.
Really,
you're never traveling with like a mosquito net or anything like that.
Just a head net if you're worried about it.
Yeah.
But all things considered, most of Africa is fairly arid, at least the areas where most of the good hunting is. And it'll range from like Kalahari Desert, which, the southern Utah and Arizona deserts will remind you of that a little bit, up through maybe, the Wyoming high country or middle country in September. It can happen. I've seen it a couple of times where there's a million house flies around you, but for the most part, I don't think the bugs are that bad. They're certainly not as bad as you'll encounter in Alaska regularly.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah. Gotcha.
What else you got?
Okay. Rain gear. Do you travel with rain gear?
I don't. I did take some to Mozambique on this last trip because they said we may get hit by an early monsoon. I don't think I've ever needed rain gear in Africa. I've been hit by a couple of rainstorms, but we've always been close enough to the truck. We just went and dove in. Yeah. Wait them out.
Okay. Great.
I tend to take mine more or less for a windbreak than anything else. And I'll just take a real light shell and that's it. I mean, maybe I've used it a couple times. Yeah, gosh, in Mozambique, we were there in November. It was so stinking hot that rain was welcome. It was refreshing.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
You're just going to, evaporate dry and be a little bit cooler, so it's okay.
You asked about bugs. We should probably touch on snakes because a lot of people ask about that.
Well, yeah, I was going to say I can handle the snakes. It's the bugs that bother me. But there's probably a lot of people that are the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I've seen an Egyptian cobra and a black mamba, one of each, maybe one other cobra in 11 safaris. Now, Austin has seen, I think, a snake on almost every trip, right?
Yeah, but I've seen a mamba one time, crossing the road, no big deal. We found a skin from a cobra one time, as we were stalking. But the other ones that we have seen are not poisonous. I mean, they were just little dinky little snakes, and they went on about their business. I mean, it was no big deal.
And being from Oklahoma, I think your eye is more attuned to seeing snakes than me here in Idaho. But the fact is, folks, that it's really, really rare to have a dangerous encounter with a snake.
Mm-hmm.
It can happen there, but it can happen in your backyard with a rattlesnake or whatever here in the States. So I just wouldn't worry about them. If you're fascinated with them, it's a cool place to go, and maybe you'll see something like a 12-foot bright yellow Egyptian cobra going 90 miles an hour through the sand and diving into his hole. I mean, that's a cool, vivid memory. And I was like, wow, that was cool. Yeah. Especially cool that he wasn't coming toward us.
Well, skip the snake section in Capstick's books if you're worried about them.
Yeah, my only other real question comes to mind is like a first aid kit or emergency stuff. And I mean, we touched on the medications and everything else. I would guess that most of your PHs have something in the truck, but curious there.
Yeah, I actually had a little kit here that I thought about showing. It's got a tourniquet in it. If you like carrying a first aid kit, by all means, take one. But your PHs are probably better medically trained to deal with the local challenges and dangers than you are, and will have the necessary equipment. And even in the most remote areas, usually they can get a helicopter to you pretty quickly. So I don't generally take first aid, like life-saving first aid. I rely on my PH. I will take like moleskin for blisters, Band-Aids, or better yet, like Leukotape for blisters, Band-Aids, maybe some little tube of antibiotic ointment in case you get a thorn that starts to fester or something. But yeah, Austin, let's talk about insurance real quick. Some people want to know about, should you have travel insurance? What do you recommend?
No.
Short answer.
Yeah, sorry.
What's available if you want it?
Answer.
So there's the emergency services, and there's also travel insurance, right? And so travel insurance is going to help with reimbursing you for costs for stuff that's unforeseen. Flights get canceled, weather blows in, something happens that is going to cost you a lot more money or ruin your trip, right? Sure, you can do it if you want to. Gosh, I really can't fathom a situation to where I've thought, man, there's nothing that we've been through so far that we couldn't fix, right? I mean, maybe we were delayed a little bit, but nothing has really been out of whack where it's cost us money or completely ruined a trip. It's going to happen eventually, right? But with your PHs and your outfitters are also very understanding that there's stuff that's out of your control, it's out of their control. And maybe you're out some airfare, and that would be like a big cost, right? But I mean, they're going to be able to work with you in most situations and either rebook you or figure out something that's going to work. I mean, I think, just even better than insurance on that was just make sure you have a good credit card that you can use internationally, because, worst case scenario is you have something that costs you, a couple $1,000s, and you don't have that pocket change. Well, if you can swipe that credit card and pay it off later, or when you get back to to home and get that taken care of, honestly, I think that's really the main thing. There are some emergency services. One of them is called Ripcord, and the other one is Global Rescue.
Global Rescue. That was what I was going to ask about.
So those two are really highly recommended. I mean, there's not hardly a lot of difference between the two of them. There's different packages you can use. They are really cheap to have a subscription to those. I mean, maybe a couple $100 a year for the top package. So,
or you can do like a month for $50 or $25 or something.
Yeah. But if you do the month deal, they're usually going to charge you like half of what a year costs. And so if you go multiple trips, it may be worth it. You just have to budget that and figure that out for yourself. But
that's like stuff that covers evacuation, emergency evacuation, hospital visits, things like that.
Yeah, emergency medical, emergency safety situations and stuff like that, where you got to get out. You got to get out quick.
Political,
that's that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So that would be. I mean, again, I work in the insurance world, but it's not something that I've ever found that I'm much more comfortable just being, having some access to money of one way or another is usually going to fix everything you need.
Do you travel with cash?
Yeah. So usually we'll take, and the way I do that is depends on what the trip is, right? I mean, a bigger cost trip, you're going to have a little bit more, in tips and things like that for the camp staff and the PHs and whatnot. And so I'll travel with enough cash to take care of the gratuities and the tips and whatever. And again, kind of rule of thumb is about 10% of your day rates on that is a good rule of thumb there. The staff, as Americans, we will tend to over tip them by a lot. So usually we'll, ask the PH or the whoever's running the camp to say, okay, what do you expect? What do they expect? What's normal? Because one of the things that they do run into in some of the very remote areas is if, they'll hold their tips until the end of the season, because if they pay them at the end of every trip, they may not come back to work for another week or another month.
Oh,
and so they leave that in their control.
Are you tipping through the PH, or are you tipping each person individually?
Usually through the PH. It just depends on how that individual operator likes to do it. I've been to places where they will give you separate envelopes, one for the kitchen, one for the camp staff, one for the laundry, and so on. And you just put whatever you want in there, and then they take care of it from there.
Gotcha.
But what I will do is I'll take my bigger stuff. So I'll take the most of it, in like $100 bills, and I'll put those in separate envelopes. And then I'll have an envelope full of like fives, and use that for just the small
for
stuff.
Quick little.
Correct, right? And I separate it, right? And that way I've got, I don't have all my money in one place. I'll take my big tip money and it'll stay just in my pack with me at all times. The small stuff, I may take a few fives and put them in my pocket or something. That way I'm not pulling out a wad of cash in a foreign airport and they're going, yeah, it's going to be, how much you got? Yeah, that.
Yeah,
that's how much. Yeah,
it's
but just kind of being smart about international travel in general. So.
And it's worth noting, I never change to African currency anymore. The American dollar is
just all
readily accepted. They can always find a place to change it. I just take American money. They recognize it immediately and appreciate it just fine. Even if maybe a villager can't change it, he'll go to a PH or somebody who can change it for him. Exchange rates tend to be around 15 to 20 to 1. So if you're talking like the South African rand or the Namibian dollar, whatever, they're quite similar. So you can do some quick mental math there if you need to. 20 to 1 is just 5%. So you can do that math. But another thing I've done, you talk about bribing and tipping and corruption and all these different things. There are a lot of really bright, happy, well-meaning people in the airports, the police stations, and so forth. In some areas, they're cracking down on corruption real hard, and they have cameras on them where they are not, they'll lose their job if they take a bribe. For those areas, I'll usually ask my PH, can I give them a tip after the fact? You let them do all their work, hand them a $5 or $10 bill and just say, hey, thanks for your smile and for being so helpful. This was a good experience. And they really appreciate that if you do it above board, right? But you have to be careful. You're not going to risk their job for them. If, on the other hand, it's like one of the more shady areas and you feel like we're going to be here 6 hours while this guy looks around to process my paper, unless I slip him a $20 or a $50 bill. I like to have little bitty manila envelopes. You can get them at the stationery store or sometimes even the bank or whatever, with a 20 and a 50 or whatever. Have a handful of them with you. And you can slip one of those inside your passport when you hand it to them. Just say, here's my paperwork. They won't even turn a hair. They'll glance in it, drop it on the desk beside them, process your paperwork, hand it back, out you go. And you've just saved yourself sometimes hours of waiting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just, you kind of have to read those situations, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and there's not been a lot of them, but man, $20 can fix a lot of stuff quick.
Yeah.
Sure. Good to know.
I mean, I can think maybe 3 times have I ever done that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It used to be a lot more common. When I started doing this in 2012, 2014, I used little manila envelopes almost everywhere I went, because otherwise every step took 20 minutes to 2 hours, where it didn't need but 1 or 2 minutes, you know? Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think we should do another of these in the future on firearms, cartridges, bullets, optics, you know, appropriate scopes and stuff. That's one of our listeners' favorite topics. We've kind of avoided it this time intentionally because there's just too much there to add into a, you know, what's the rest of your gear list. But we'll try and get together and do that. And I think this same team right here would be a great group, because Landon, your background in precision shooting and long range shooting and hunting and so forth, you'll have a great perspective.
I'll have some opinions.
Yeah, some opinions and some questions. You know, I don't think you're probably as accustomed to using the medium bores like the 35 Whelen 9.3 by 62. No, even the classics like a 30-06, 7x57 Mauser.
Yeah.
Those are areas of Austin's, you know, passion. He's passionate about those. I'm passionate about them. And yet both of us use cutting edge cartridges, like everything from 7PRC to 280 Ackley and whatnot. So we can kind of plan on a really cool conversation there. But guys, we're approaching 2 hours. This has been a chock full of great information conversation. So I want to thank you both. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
I would add just don't overthink it and overdo it, right? I've traveled with guys that have, I mean, goodness gracious, their carry-ons were 50 pounds because they were scared to death to leave something behind. I think the stuff that we talked about today, a lot of the essentials are that they are essential, right? And if it's something that you say, hey, I might need it, I don't know that I would take it. I mean, even on that medical kit thing, I mean, I may take a couple Band-Aids, but I can do a cowboy Band-Aid with some electrical tape that I already have anyway.
Yeah.
You know, and be just perfectly fine. And so, it's just, you just, gosh, just don't overdo it. And that's hard. It's hard anytime you do something for the first time to not overdo it.
Right.
Yep. It's not like a DIY adventure in deep backcountry stuff. I still think of it as almost a type of backcountry hunt, because you're traveling so far to some very remote regions to do it. But then you're arriving and hunting with what is probably going to be the most professional guide you have ever experienced in your life. He has the crucial items. You could literally show up in your hunting boots, some earth tone colored clothing, your binocular, rifle, and ammo, and have a good hunt. You don't absolutely need all that other stuff. Your tripods, your game bags, your knife sharpening equipment, spotting scopes, backpacks, all that stuff simply isn't necessary. You're never even going to need it. So like Austin says, don't bother to take it.
Good to know.
So one thing I want to do before we leave is give a little bit of a plug for our Global Hunting Adventures hunt counseling and booking agency, and introduce Landon as one of the cogs in our wheel right now. He's been helping, as I mentioned, with our logistics and handling some of our social media and so forth. We'll be doing more going forward. And Austin and I are helping him prep right now for some international adventures. Landon is a vastly experienced, honest to goodness backcountry hunter here in America. Runs llamas and hunts places that take sometimes days to get into, shoots great big mule deer and elk and bears and stuff. So he's got that background. He's one of the better riflemen and shooting instructors I've worked with. In fact, on a related note, Landon's going to come be a co-instructor with me at our elk hunting boot camp this spring. So
looking forward to that.
Yeah, some of you will get a chance to meet and work with Landon. In the future, we hope to have Landon helping us host some of our podcast hosted hunts, just so we can do more and experience more of these adventures with you guys. But the long and short of this is Landon, welcome aboard. Thank you for being an asset to the team. Austin, we're having too much fun. We need to get more organized so we don't let people fall through the cracks. Landon's going to help with that. And folks,
so if you're listening and you have fallen through the cracks, please be patient. We are very sorry, but Landon is here to help us with that.
And send us a reminder. Please send us a reminder. Yeah, we will not be offended by follow-ups. We'll be grateful for them.
Yeah.
And if you have dreams and aspirations to hunt around the world or in the U.S., but especially places like Africa, Europe, New Zealand, Scotland, Spain, please reach out to us and we'll try and share some of the great destinations that we've personally experienced and introduce you to some wonderful people that we are very confident will give you a fantastic hunting experience abroad.
Well, and I think just to, tag on a little bit to the end of that is that we're constantly adding new stuff. I mean, we have a couple trips planned, so far this spring where you're making quite a tour coming up.
I am
looking at some stuff in Europe. So it's there's exciting stuff on the horizon for sure.
Yeah. I'll be hitting Transylvania, an area where they have everything from giant roe deer to Eurasian brown bear and everything in between, some very historic regions there. I'm going to be in Barcelona area in Spain and branching out from there with a new outfitter named Oscar that we think is going to be fantastic. And then going to Macedonia and Serbia to experience some new opportunities there that the government is opening up on everything from roebuck to mountain chamois. Just incredible stuff. Really excited to bring you more about that. I'll be doing audio journal type episodes about those experiences and would just love to hear from you. If any of it prompts a dream, share with us and we'll make those dreams become reality.
Absolutely.
Exciting.
Cool, guys. Well, thanks for your time today. This has been a long episode, but so good. Really
hugely educational. I learned a lot, and I imagine quite a few of our listeners did as well.
I'm glad. And as stated earlier, folks, we'll try and publish a transcript of this episode on patreon.com/backcountry, where you can go and read through it, view it there, and I'll try and combine the items into a bullet point type list that you can print off and do a checklist with. Thanks for tuning in. Austin, Landon, thank you again for your time and for being part of the Global Hunting Adventures team and great assets here on the podcast. Really appreciate you both.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And with that, folks, check out our Patreon content. We try and post bonus content there a couple times a week. We do Q&A and answer in like short audio form some of the more interesting questions that we get from our patrons on patreon.com/backcountry. And would love to hear from you there, or just email us, backcountryhuntingpodcast@gmail.com. It's worth noting that our old podcast email, joseph@backcountrypodcast.com, is defunct, does not work anymore. So please send us questions about hunting, gear, whatever, on the backcountryhuntingpodcast@gmail address. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm here with Landon Michaels and Austin Brown, two of the most astute hunters in my experience. And we'll see you in the backcountry.